Hello, I've found myself in a studio with a camera, so I thought I'd take the opportunity. I'm here in Sydney, Australia, to just throw in my thoughts and my, 20 years of research now into this whole phenomenon that's unfolding as I speak, called the Occupy movement. Came out of Wall Street, of course. And it's a great thing. It's fantastic that people are waking up to the point where they're saying, I'm a slave, and I ain't having it anymore. That's the great Rubicon that needs crossing so we can do something about this. The reason I'm just going to put this information out, people make of it what they will, is there's another agenda going on here too. And if the genuine response to this grotesque enslavement of humanity in terms of finance and in terms of so many other things is going to be challenged effectively, then people need to get streetwise to what this other agenda is. And also the fundamentals of what we're dealing with. So I'm going to take it in stages. First of all, the fundamentals of what we're dealing with. If anything is going to happen that's going to change this tyranny of global banking and global finance, then first of all, the way that money is created, or what passes for money is created, has to fundamentally change. If this doesn't change, nothing's going to change, because the power doesn't move. There's no change in the power dynamic of money creation, because people don't realize this in vast, vast numbers, that when you ask the question, how is money created, where does money come from, people have this kind of feeling, well, it's the government's in it. No. Overwhelmingly, massively overwhelmingly, it is not the government's. It is private banks, which, if you do the research, owned by the same people under different names, the same network under different names. Private banks are creating what we call money out of fresh, bloody air, and then charging us interest on it. And it works like this. If you go into a bank and you borrow $50,000, what does the bank do? Does it move precious metal anywhere? I mean, what does it do? What it does is it types into your account $50,000. And from that moment, you start paying interest on $50,000 that has never, does not, and will never exist. Fresh air, theoretical money called credit. This has been allowed to happen because, again, when you do the research, the same networks that control governments and therefore pass legislation to do with banking are the same networks that control the banks and the banking system. Therefore, laws have been passed called fractional reserve lending that allow banks to lend at least, and my goodness, it's at least 10 times what they have on deposit. So when you put $1 in a bank, that bank can now lend 9/10 that it does not have. Fresh air, figures on a screen. Not only that, you borrow $50,000 from a bank. What does it do? It types into your account $50,000. Okay, now you're paying interest on it. But you take $10,000 and you say, I'm going to buy that car, and you give $10,000 to the guy who owns the car to buy the car off him. Now the guy who's received your $10,000 that was created out of nothing in the original $50,000 now goes and deposits the 10 grand in his own bank. Now that bank can lend 10 times the 10 grand that was created out of nothing in the first place. This is what's going on. And then if you follow one loan, $50,000 or whatever, you follow that through the banking system, and that one loan allows the banking system as a whole to create phenomenal amounts of non-existent money we call credit from that original non-existent credit loan. This is how the banking system, ladies and gentlemen, have taken the world over. Why wouldn't it when they can do that? And there's another little scam here. All written in on purpose, cold, calculated. When you go into a bank and you borrow $50,000, the bank creates, even in this theoretical, ludicrous way, $50,000. But you're not paying back $50,000, you're paying back $50,000 plus interest. The interest is never created, even as credit, which means a simple fact. At any point in time, coldly calculated, designed to be, there is never anything like enough units of exchange, money, in circulation to pay back all the principal on the debt and all the interest on the outstanding debt. Therefore, people losing their homes, losing their businesses, losing goodness knows what else that they've worked for, is built into the system. Now, when you have a boom and there's an expansion of this non-existent, ludicrous money called credit, then Peter Pays Paul hides to a large extent the fact that we're in this situation where the outstanding debt cannot be paid back or even nearly paid back plus interest because there isn't the units exchange to do it. But when you go into a recession or a depression and there is a contraction of those ludicrous units of exchange in circulation, then it becomes blatantly obvious that there's not enough units of exchange to pay back all the interest on the debt and all the principal, and that's why you get this explosion, which we've got now, of people losing their homes, losing their businesses, losing their land, their farms, etc. And all these tent cities that are appearing around the world. And so we have a system where the private banks, in the end controlled by the same network, not least around the house of Rothschild and others, the Rockefellers too, in America, have been given this level of power to create money and dictate completely, beyond governments, global finance. And that's why they're able to create booms and busts at will. That's why when they want to create a bust and a depression, which they have now, what do? They refuse to issue the same amounts of ludicrous credit units of exchange. And what do we call it? Oh, the banks have got a credit crunch. A credit crunch, what's that? It's suppressing the amount of money in circulation, so by definition creating this situation we're in. The whole money system has been designed from its creation to be a system of human enslavement and human control and human suppression. So first of all, any occupying protests around the world on the agenda has to be the end of private banks being able to create money out of fresh air on a computer screen and charge interest on it. Now here's a question. Why are governments, they're the government after all, don't they make the laws? I heard somewhere they did. Why are they not creating their own currency interest-free and circulating it interest-free? Therefore, it does the job it's supposed to do, which is to be a unit of exchange to overcome the limitations of barter. Why? I've said it already. Because the same networks that control the banks control the governments. And so the governments do not pass legislation saying, well, what are we borrowing fresh air money from the banks for, plus interest, and making the people have to pay in taxation all that stuff back? All we've got to do is create our own money interest-free, because you see, at the moment, the very unit of exchange which allows economic activity to happen is created at the very start as a debt by people borrowing money from banks called credit. It's a debt from the start, the very unit of exchange in the world. It's crazy, it's insane. Number two, that has got to go. No more government